Greetings, Father Joe here, your friendly neighborhood pastor, coming to you from St. Patrick's Church in lovely Highland Mills, New York. We continue our reading of chapter 8 of St. Paul's letter to the Romans. Again, as a homework, I gave people chapter 8 during this week. Read chapter 8 of St. Paul's letter to the Romans. It's beautiful, it's inspiring, it's challenging, it's just a really wonderful chapter. Yesterday, St. Paul ended with, we're going to be glorified with Jesus, provided we suffer with him. And so today's reading, again, chapter 8, and we're beginning in verse 18. We ended yesterday with 17. St. Paul says, I consider that the sufferings of this present time are as nothing compared to the glory to be revealed in us. So just to put this into context, St. Paul was talking about our adoption as the children of God, and how God has these great things planned for us, provided we suffer with him. Now, some people might get put off by this and say, I don't want to suffer. St. Paul, he's on his way to Rome. He's on his way to Rome to be killed. He's going to be martyred for the faith. And so he knows what he's talking about when he says that these sufferings of the present age. However, he has this hope in the glory to be revealed. That's a hope. What makes it so strong? Because he says, nobody hopes for what one sees. We hope for something that is unseen. So what makes St. Paul so hopeful? I have a passage here. This is from Flannery O'Connor. She was writing to a young man at Emory University, and he was going through difficult times. He was Protestant. And Flannery O'Connor writes, one of the effects of modern liberal Protestantism has been gradually to turn religion into poetry and therapy and make truth vaguer and vaguer and more relative, to banish intellectual distinctions, to depend on feelings instead of thought, and gradually to come to believe that God has no power, that he cannot communicate with us, cannot reveal himself to us, indeed has not done so, and that religion is our own sweet invention. This seems to be about where you find yourself now. So then Flannery O'Connor continues, of course, I'm a Catholic, and I believe the opposite of this. I believe what the church teaches, that God has given us reason to use, and that it can lead us toward a knowledge of him through analogy, that he has revealed himself to us in history and continues to do so through the church, and that he is present, not just symbolically, in the Eucharist on our altar. To believe all this, I don't take any leap into the absurd. I find it reasonable to believe, even though these beliefs are beyond reason. The only way that Flannery O'Connor could answer this young man, could give him hope, was to acknowledge that his lack of faith, but his faith in liberal Protestantism, which, by the way, this was 60 years ago, was leading him to be, what she says, more and more vague, less and less dependable. Flannery O'Connor was also dying. She had lupus, and it was very painful, and there was no cure. And so Flannery O'Connor's a lot like St. Paul here. I'm going to die. I've got no reason to lie to anybody. I just want you to know that God has something glorious prepared for us. And even though I'm suffering, I'm speaking now for Flannery O'Connor and St. Paul, even though I'm suffering, I still have hope. I have hope that what God has promised He's going to do, and it is a reasonable hope. It must be a reasonable hope for St. Paul, because he could have avoided going to Rome. They didn't have a good case against him, but he demanded to go and take his case to the emperor. And it just was not something you wanted to do. Flannery O'Connor, she's suffering. And so they have, both of them have a keen insight, I think, into our hope. And this kind of is a takeaway for all of us. People are going to depend on you. How do you deal with suffering? If you suffer in a good, holy, and religious way, you're going to be a light to the nations. You're going to be hope to people in despair. In this day and age, when all facts seem to be personal, what is my truth? What is your truth? We need to be a sign that God is true, that Jesus truly came down and revealed to us who God is, and that we can put our hope in Him, and our hope will not let us down, that God is going to make us glorious. God bless you.